Well, good evening and welcome to another episode of Father's Fire. My name's Jody Sedrick, and every week, you guys know we get together to explore the joys, the challenges, the triumphs, the sorrows, and yes, the fun of being a dad. And I tell you, there have been some interesting and fun conversations over the past couple weeks with the entanglement between Will Smith and Chris Rock.
Oh
So
man.
I had to get my boy, my brother, my friend, the guy, the man that I look up to, Mr. Mike Lewis, to join me for a conversation. So welcome, Mike. How you doing today?
Brother, I appreciate it, man. I'm doing well, man. Entanglement. Oh my God. Oh man. I feel like we're gonna get in trouble.
We probably are, but here's the thing, right? It has the thing that I mean, obviously the tragedy, the travesty that
Yeah,
happened at the Academy Awards with Will
yeah,
Smith walking on stage and just cold slapping Chris Rock. I mean, it literally was a slap felt across the world
yeah, man.
because it impacted everybody, right? And as I was thinking about it, and I've watched so many conversations and people's viewpoints and TikToks and their commentaries, their YouTube. I mean, it is the talk of the nation, talk of the
Yeah,
world right now. But at the core, the real issue I think is men's mental health,
yeah, yeah,
right? Because obviously there is a lot of background stuff going on with Will Smith and Jada, and we've all been kind of clued into it a little bit. But dude, you really don't know the whole
yeah,
story, the whole backdrop. And as sad as it was, Chris Rock became the the result of whatever was simmering in
yeah.
his heart. So I thought it'd be good, especially because you just wrote a book about mental health, a workbook, and I'm like, you know what? Let's talk about it because I think a lot of men really struggle with opening up their heart and talking either to their significant other or
Mhm.
a trusted friend, and it's really hard for them. And it really came home to rest with me this past week, because I actually did a post saying, you know what, I need to change my mental mindset. I had found myself slowly, because of the weight of business and some things that were happening in our company that were really frustrating, that were aggravating me, that I had found myself falling into some mental dark language.
Mhm.
And dude, I really struggle. I am a very positive person. I always am looking for solutions. And I had gotten to the point where there was such negative self talk that I was putting on a good face,
Yeah.
but inside I was simmering. And so I did a little post and I talked about, making that mind shift. What was interesting was the next morning, Judy and I are driving to work out, and she goes, Jody, I saw your post yesterday. Do you want
Mm.
to talk about it?
Wow.
And it made me realize that, Judy and I have a phenomenal relationship. I mean, we can talk about anything, but I had not made the time, and she'd been working. We had not made the time to really sit down and talk about the things that were on my heart. And I was like most men, putting it on my shoulders, putting it on my back, and go, I got this.
Yeah.
But it was really healthy because Judy and I are driving and we're going to work out. We get to the gym and we literally sat in the parking lot for another 20 minutes just
Wow.
talking.
Wow.
And the power of that for me was huge, right? To be able to unload my heart, to share with my wife my concerns, my doubts, some of the fears that I was struggling with, my frustrations with
Yeah.
the language that other people are using that I felt was affecting me. And man, her insight and perspective was so powerful to me. And it really helped me go even farther into a more positive mindset where I could
Mhm.
go, you know what, we got this.
Yeah.
I can work through this.
Wow, man, that's really really good, man. Let me say this first and foremost, as a disclaimer, right? No, seriously, because we have to do it, right? I myself, I am not a licensed therapist, right?
Right.
And we have to be careful with that because we can share nuggets and insight into this space. Um, but unfortunately, in the world that we live in, a person will take what we're saying, and if they don't get the result that they expect, for lack of better words, and
Sure.
they, unfortunately, we live in a world where they may try to come after us for whatever reason.
Sure.
So
You're,
I have
yeah.
to, I have to say that I'm not a licensed therapist, but I will say this. I
But
will
you
say
are a man, and you
I
are a dad, and you own a
yes,
business, and you have kids, and
yes.
all of those things make you an expert in just being a man.
Absolutely, man. And that's where I was going with this because although I'm not a licensed therapist, I have experienced life. And on so many different levels, Jody. And honestly, what inspired me writing that that journal, honestly, the Men's Mental Health Legacy Journal. I don't want to say it was by accident, right? I do believe that it was by design, but there was part of it that was by accident because I just heard off a whim that it was National Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, right? And I said, well, wow, I've never heard of it before, but let's put something in place for men. And I'm gonna tell you what inspired it. Okay. People that know me, people that are extremely close, and you know this, as a matter of fact, prior to my wife and I moving here to Houston, um, I received the devastating news that a best friend of over 20 plus years, unfortunately, took his life. And that devastated me. It did, man. It devastated me. Not only because this was my brother for over 20 plus years, but more than anything, I found myself holding in a lot of the feelings that came with that, right? Under this facade that as a man, I need to hold this stuff in because to express it made me weak. And
Mm.
so what I did was I said, how many more men are trapped under this facade that you can't express yourself? You can't express where you're hurting because if you do, now the world looks at you as this weak man. But what I realized, Jody, is that to hold it in makes you weaker. And so this men's mental health journal gave me an opportunity to really just share my strategy that I've used in my own life that allows me to release what I'm experiencing, right? And I've gotten more and more comfortable, of course, with having conversations. I bounce things off of you and our brother Sean all the time. And but it made it so much more uh durable to deal with, to actually press through when I wrote these thoughts down. And so the way that I formatted the book is very simple. I believe in simplicity, right? But one of the things that I did was, of course, I don't know if you can see that. You have day
Yeah, I
one,
can see.
yeah, day one, night one, or day three, night three, right? So what I did though is every single morning, it's become a routine for me to wake up and acknowledge that for which I'm grateful for. Right. And so I write that down. I'm grateful for, and then I write it down. And then I talk about what my top priority or focus will be for that day. And I write that down. Right. Then I go into who will I need to reach out to today to hold me accountable to stay on track with this priority. And then, of course, I write out my expectations, my thoughts, or any ideas that I have that morning. What I realized, Jody, is that to be able to open up each and every day with gratitude puts me in a place where I'm thankful for even the minute things, like waking up this morning, like the breath of fresh air that you and I just took within a millisecond ago. It's the it's the smallest things that I think men have a tendency not to acknowledge that puts them deeper into this hole of sometimes stress and depression. And we feel that if we if we regurgitate that what we're experiencing, then we become weaker, right? We become
Yeah.
less of a man. And that is so far from the truth, Jody. It's so far from the truth. So that's really what inspired this. Um, because I realized that I'm not the only one, right? I'm not the only one that hurts. I'm not the only one that have been trained and conditioned by society to believe that I'm supposed to man up. Like, what does that mean? Man up. So that means that you just sit there and take the hurt and let it just destroy you? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So this resource has become an avenue for men that's not comfortable enough yet to verbally express what they're dealing with, but now they can actually write it out. So and then I, of course, end each night with two or three things, two to three good things that happened for me today, right? And so what it does is it puts me in this place where it says, okay, I can easily talk about the things that didn't work out the way that I wanted them to, but I want to press through that mental barrier and say, what two or three good things happen for me today that I'm going to go to bed with on my mind. Because I understand, and just like you, Jody, you understand that whatever you lay your head down with in your mind, you're going to wake up with that, right? And so that's how we end the night. And then I do acknowledge this, though. I say, although I made progress, so I'm acknowledging that although it may not have been what I probably expected, I did make some progress, right? So what we're doing is we're reconditioning our thinking. And although I made progress, I still had a challenge with this. Again, being able
Mm,
to write that out and say, okay,
yeah.
this is what I'm dealing with, right? This is what I'm dealing with. Tomorrow, next question or statement, tomorrow will be phenomenal because, and so I'm already declaring what the next day is going to be. Although I had something that I'm still quote unquote having a challenge with, tomorrow's going to be phenomenal because of this. And then, of course, I finish it off with the expectations, the thoughts, the ideas, and the final thoughts for the day. And so, again, it was just a resource, Jody, that helped me personally. That I realized there's more men, and more people out there that needs to have a resource where they can actually write these things down until they get comfortable enough with expressing it verbally. So that's how that came about.
Yeah, I think a lot of men really struggle with who do I talk to?
Mm,
And
hmm.
if you go back all the way to when we were boys being raised, I mean, you think about it. When you were out playing and you tripped and
Yeah,
skinned your knee or your elbow, you took that mad wreck on your bicycle
yeah.
and you came in crying. What was the reaction?
From who?
Oh, from dad or mom, it's like
Look, look.
especially dad, because dad
Yeah,
would be like, "Oh, come on, it's not that bad. It's a
yeah,
flesh wound,
yeah.
dude. You want to see a real wound? Look at this scar right here. Let me tell you about this." Right, and
Hey,
so
wait.
from day one, the boys are discounted. Their feelings are discounted, and they're
Yeah,
like shoving aside.
yeah,
Right,
yeah. No,
so
that is so powerful, Jody, because my dad used to tell us this all the time, man. It was you look back at it now, but it's so funny. He used to tell us this all the time in a situation like that, right? We come in with a scraped knee. Oh, you that ain't nothing. You'll be okay. But here's the interesting thing: he will pull his pants leg up, and he has this huge scar like around his knee, right? He said, he said, you know how I got this? Now his story stayed consistent. Like I believed it probably until I was about 13. Like, man, daddy is a beast. And so, but he had this huge scar on his knee, and he used to say he got that scar because he was attacked by a bear, right? So I'm sitting
oh
here.
god,
He said I was attacked by a bear. So I'm just sitting here like, so now I get to walk around school like I'm tough because my daddy got attacked by a bear. But I bet not. I better not cry about this little scrape that I got off my bike. But no, man, it is so true. It is so true that I think subconsciously, I from a father's perspective, right? subconsciously, and I'm trying to catch myself with this, and I think I shared this on the Father's Fire before, how my wife really got me back in line with this.
Yeah.
But I try to catch my emotions when I'm dealing with my younger children, right? Because again, I don't want them to become comfortable with not expressing what they're going through by minimizing what they're going through,
Yeah.
right? And so I'm becoming more and more conscious of that. And I think as men, we need to be able to identify that within ourselves first. Like, what is it that I'm suppressing? What is this that I'm suppressing? Where is this coming from? Right? And when we can do that by allowing ourselves to openly express that with others, then it releases so much pressure. It really, really does. It releases so much pressure. You know, my wife does a lot of cooking in the house. Thank God. She does a lot of cooking. She's really, really good at it. But one thing that comes to mind though, Jody, is that she uses what's the Ninja, the little steamer thing, right?
Yeah.
And so after so much time, the food after so much time, she has to push this little button, and all you hear is psst, right? This pressure that's been building up for the past 20 or 30 minutes now, she has to release that thing, right? What I realize is that if she goes without releasing that, that canister can blow and cause some serious damage. So as men, we have to be mindful of the pressure that's been building up all the way from childhood sometime. And that's the part that we're afraid to go back and revisit, because most of the trauma, a great deal of the trauma that as men that we are facing, took place when we were little boys growing up to become men. And then all of a sudden now we have this rough, hard, rhinoceros skin, and we can't express what we're really dealing with. And so we deal with people that mentally battle this, right? And it becomes so much pressure, Jody. And honestly, I personally believe that that was a conduit to what happened with Will Smith and Chris Rock. I really, really do. And I'm confident in saying that because I I don't know if you've read Will Smith's new book or listened to it on
Oh,
audio.
it's phenomenal. It's my favorite book.
It is a phenomenal book. And I told my wife, I said it had to be one of the most therapeutic books I've ever listened to and read in my life.
Yep.
It
Yep.
is phenomenal. And so I was sharing with her though, I said, if you read or listened to his book, what happened makes more sense.
Oh
It doesn't
yeah.
it doesn't justify it,
Yeah.
but it
No.
makes more sense, right?
Yeah.
So I do think that there's something there that he's still pressing through, as with all of us, right?
Well,
All of us.
and here's the interesting thing to me, Mike, is I've thought a lot about it, and you mentioned, having a dear friend of yours recently commit suicide. I remember very distinctly the day that my dad got a call. We were sitting at dinner, and the call was that his brother had committed suicide, my uncle
Mm,
Gene. And I just remember seeing my dad visibly collapse.
wow.
I mean, he didn't fall to the floor, but he visibly just shrunk and just started weeping. And it's interesting because I don't think people realize that
Mm.
two thirds of the suicides are men under 45.
Oh, wow. Wow.
That is a tragic number. And
Wow.
it shows that there are a lot of men walking through life without any avenue to let that steam out of that pressure cooker. They're holding it all in, they're pushing it down, they're never facing it. They're putting on the strong face, the stoic face, the smiley face. They're putting on a mask to hide the real feelings of their heart, whether they're afraid that they're not going to be a good father, they're not going to be able to provide. They're walking with all this hurricane that has been pushed down to the point that there's an instant that we
Absolutely.
see the result of that, right? Just
Absolutely.
like Chris and Will Smith. And it's the sad thing about this is nobody is going to remember that he won the Oscar for Best Actor.
Yeah.
They're only going to remember the slap. And
Yeah.
so it's a travesty that one moment can define a person,
Yeah.
both in the past and in the present.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we as men, we're walking in a moment of judgment from our past
Mm.
and not letting it go, not working through it so that we can move forward in the present so that we have a productive and healthy future. And
Absolutely.
now, you know, you have men that have done something today that now they're going to judge themselves, they're going to be judged for, and it's going to be hard to move past that because one of the challenging things that I see, especially in broken homes, is a lot of times when they're trying to reconcile to bring back the relationship between the father and the husband,
Father,
it's
father and the
it's
wife.
sorry, the father and the wife, is that it's thank you. It's difficult for them to see the change that a
Yeah.
person has gone through because they still have the memory and pain of the past.
Absolutely.
And it takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of love to move through that together.
Yeah.
And it's challenging. And the difficult part for men is they don't have a way, or they haven't been taught a way to
Mhm.
work through that pain,
Yeah.
to work through the reality of what happened to them or what they did so that they can move forward and become the men that they really want to.
Yeah. No, it's so true. It's so true. Again, because to 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 share what you're dealing with in society says you're a punk. Right? And that's so far from the truth, man. It is so far from the truth. I think it builds character. I think it builds strength. Um, Now I think it's necessary to bounce things off of people that can hold you accountable to do the right thing. And as Jim Rohn said before, he said, correct the errors of the past to pick up new disciplines for the future. I do
Mm,
believe that it's necessary to do that, but I also believe that the internal work that needs to take place is the biggest barrier for a lot of men, right? It really is. There's that's a huge barrier for a lot of men because, for example, in and you know this, right? The other book, The Lion's Den. People ask me all the time, Jody, like, how long did it take for you to write that book? And that book, honestly, was 15 years of the pressure in the pressure cooker building up. That was 15 years. And it took that long because I had to go back down memory lane and deal with some things that I ignored for quite some time. And it wasn't until I found people like yourself, I found people like Sean, that I can say, "Hey man, I'm dealing with this." You know what I mean? Like pray for me. I'm dealing with this thing. I had no idea the impact that this had, but y'all, I'm dealing with this thing. How do I break through this? Right. And I think that's the part that a great deal of men are afraid to press through, is the internal battle. The internal battle. And I'm telling you, man, if we can get past that as men on a consistent basis, I think everything changes. Absolutely everything changes. Your marriage changes, your business changes, your finances changes, your career everything changes. It is such it is such a stronghold for people, right? Um, and unfortunately, this is so common. It is so common with just the world today, right? Think about this, man. When we were growing up, we didn't hear the term mental health like we do now. We didn't hear it.
No.
No, we didn't hear it, man. Like I give you another example. What they call bullying today, right? We used to call that panning. Like we're just panning on each other, right? But what's interesting, the difference in the dynamics of what's happening now compared to what happened then is there's a lot more trauma that's been built up in the process of this of the bullying, right? Of the mental health. There's so much more trauma there that has gone unresolved. And as long
Yeah.
as that goes unresolved, my the pain that I feel, Jody, is that there's going to be a vast amount of people that go to their grave and never deal with it when
Mm.
they could have been free a long time ago.
Yeah.
You know what I
You
mean?
know, I think one of the challenges we as men and fathers have is we haven't been taught how to process things, right?
Yeah.
It's always been just shove it aside, work through it,
Yep.
pull your pants up and be a man and deal with it. And so now we are literally walking with men who have damaged hearts,
Yes,
that
sir.
have damaged egos, they have damaged feelings about how they feel about themselves and their experiences. So I love the idea that you've created this men's journal and started it with, gratitudes, because I have a gratitude journal that I go through and I walk through, and it makes a huge difference
Yeah.
in changing my mindset. But even that, I think that's a great starting point. But at some point, you have to discover a way to actually verbalize what
Yes.
you're feeling. To have a friend that you can go, you know what, let me go work in the shop with you. Can I tell you what's on my heart? Can we go hunting or fishing or whatever? Sometimes just being together with another man or your lovely wife, your queen,
Mhm.
who has such a great perspective on who you are and the experiences that you've had, that
Absolutely.
she brings wisdom that other people won't. And I think a lot of times men miss the opportunity of working through a problem because they don't include their wife.
Oh, absolutely.
I think the other thing too, I was thinking a lot about, it's easy, especially when you're under stress and you're not sure how to solve the problem, to react.
Yeah.
And if you think about the movie Endgame and Thanos, right? They're at the point where Thanos is about to crush
Yeah.
all of the superheroes. And Doctor Strange is sitting there with his cross legs,
Mhm.
just processing 14 million potential outcomes to come up with one.
Yeah.
And I think we men need to do a better job of, in the heat of the moment, to step back and really think about all the potential responses
Yeah.
instead of reacting. And we haven't been taught how to take that mental and emotional time out to help us move forward in a positive direction. I mean, you think about Will Smith. If he would have just sat back in his chair for another 30 minutes and 30 seconds and just thought about, all right, if I walk up and I
Yeah.
do this, what, how is this really going to impact my family?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so we
So
need to
so
figure out a way to do that.
it's so true, and I think as men, Jody, I think one of the ways to assist other men with that is take our judgmental hats off when someone
Mm,
comes to us and expresses what it is that they're dealing with, right? I think it is so damaging. It is so damaging for us as men to carry on this facade that we're perfect and we never made mistakes or we don't go through anything. that is so damaging, because again, it gives this fallacy that men don't hurt, right? And if men don't hurt, then there's nothing to express, there's nothing to release. Well, we're seeing on a consistent basis that if you continue to just hold that in, there's some damage there, right? And again, for us not to be judgmental when other men, when our brothers come to us, it's like I heard someone say this years ago, and this is how I try to consciously deal with any of like my coaching clients, anything, any relationship, period. I heard someone say this. He says, we need to get into the habit of, instead of pouring salt on people's wounds, we need to learn how to cover it with oil. And when I heard that, I said, wow, that is so powerful, because if you've ever had salt in a cut before, it burns. Right? It burns. So who would dare want to be comfortable, or who would dare trust you enough to come to you and say, hey, I'm dealing with this, if they know all you're going to do is just pour salt on them? They're tired of burning. They're tired of burning. How can my watch? How can we as men learn to listen first, and then if now here's the key. Listen first, and then if God gives us the solution, be able to express that. Right? Now on the other side, as men that's sharing what we're going through, we have to be open enough to receive how to break through it.
Mm.
So it's two ways.
Yeah.
It goes both ways, right? It goes both ways. And I think that's another challenge that so many men have, is that yeah, you can talk about it, but can you receive the correction? Can you receive the instruction to fix it? Because again, it requires going back down memory lane sometimes. Sometimes, Jody, it requires us to forgive for things that happened way, 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 way back. You know what I mean? And that's
Yeah.
why I said that we could have been delivered from this trauma a long time ago. But like you said, we have to be taught how to do it. And I think that's one way that we can do it. We have to forgive the offense. We have to.
Well, there's two things that you commented on that I want to touch on. First of all, that place of judgment,
Mm-hmm.
because, and this is a message to the women, right? There are a lot of men that would like to come to you and share their heart.
Oh man.
But when you do that, they're afraid that that is going to be used against them in the future. Right.
Yes.
And I'm very blessed. I don't have that in my relationship. Judy and I have a very, very healthy relationship. I can tell her anything, and I know that in 6 months it's not going to come back and haunt me. Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think building that foundation of trust in your relationship fosters and enables healthier conversations, especially with things that are weighing on your heart and mind.
Absolutely.
And so I think, it takes work. It takes discipline, right? Because, nobody wants a whiny person in their relationship, but they do want somebody that has the confidence to trust you with their heart.
Absolutely.
Right. And if
Absolutely.
I can trust you with my heart, I know that we can move together and we can solve the problem.
Yeah.
And then there's something else, second thing that you said that that's escaping me. So maybe it'll come back to me. But I think it's really, really important that, we have the space to be able to express. And it's hard because it requires, and this is it requires us to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we men, who do we go talk to? Somebody that is going to commiserate with us
Yep. Yep.
instead of us holding us accountable. That's
Yep.
going to go, well, Jody, all right, you said this. And that's basically what my wife said. She said, all right, you gave me this perspective.
Yeah.
Have you thought about this?
Yep.
And
Yep.
part of that included, have you thought about this in yourself?
Yeah. You know,
And
that
you
is so,
have to be open to receive that.
yeah.
If you can't look at yourself authentically and go, yeah, I need to own part of this situation, because we have a tendency to point fingers outwards. But
Yeah.
like my mama always said, if you're pointing the finger at someone, you got three pointing back at
That's,
you.
that's it.
So what do you
That's
need
it.
to own?
And so and that's so key, man, because are you willing to deal with those three fingers that are pointing back at you? Right. I tell people all the time, hey, listen, you can lie to the person that's looking at you in the eyes, but you can't lie to the reflection in the mirror. You know what you did. I give you a prime example. My wife and I, we were meeting with our pastor one time, and you know, I can admit it now. Like I was, man, I was up there, Jody. I was just like, man, this right here is some bull crap, right? But now here's the interesting thing. Here's the interesting thing. He just kind of tapped the table a little bit. He said, Mike, he said, if you're, I'm telling you, man, being able to have that accountability is key. He said, if your boy Sean, talking about our brother, Sean Hart, right? He said, if your boy Sean was here right now, would he tell you that you're thinking the right way? And Jody, like seriously, man, and I looked, I said, and all I could do, honestly, Jody, all I could do is I sat back and I said, he'll tell me I'm tripping. He said, okay. He said, so now that you know that, boom, 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 this is what we need to do, right? So it's just, again, man, it is so necessary, so powerful, so life changing. Seriously, it's life altering, man, to be able to have that accountability, be willing to listen to the accountability, and do that inner work. Do that inner work, man. It is unfortunately, Jody, has gotten to the point where it's life or death. Life
Yeah.
or death. You know what I mean? And that's why, you know, in our group text, I said, man, I hope that this does not destroy his career.
Oh, yeah.
Because if that happens, now as a brother, I'm like, how is this going to further traumatize what he's breaking through? You see what I'm
Well,
saying?
and that's why I titled this "The Slap Felt Across the World,"
Yeah, man.
because a moment, it's interesting because a lot of times we think our decisions only affect us
Yeah.
or only affect our family. But just like a stone thrown in a lake, those ripples continue on and on and on. And just when you think they're over, because what happens when you throw a rock in the lake? The ripples, at first they're really, really close together and they get
Yeah.
farther apart and farther apart and farther apart. And just when you think you're done with
Yeah.
whatever it was years ago, another ripple hits you.
That's
It's
it,
like, I
man.
thought I already dealt with that, right? And so now he is going to face those ripples for years.
Yeah.
And it's I keep thinking about the power of a moment.
Mm,
A moment can, right or wrong, define you for the next foreseeable years.
absolutely.
Right. And
Absolutely.
so it's so critically important that we figure out a way as men to have the conversations that are needed in our heart. And
Yeah.
back to the finger pointing, right? We need to have, like you say, we need to have that inner work, but we need to make sure that it's productive inner work.
Absolutely.
Because one of those fingers pointing back at you is the truth. It's something that you need to look at.
Yeah.
But the other two looking at you is negative self talk
Absolutely.
that is
Yes.
tearing you down. It's breaking your spirit. It's shredding your soul.
Yeah.
And there's only one, the one of truth, that the spirit will testify that, you know what, yeah, that's something you need to address and you need to work on that. So we need to be careful that we're working on our inner self on the right thing,
Mm.
not on the voices of others,
Yeah,
including the voice of negativity to ourselves.
man, that's so good. That's so good. So good. Absolutely. Wow.
So, you and I can obviously keep going, but, kind of in wrap up, if, obviously we want to share the link to your book because I think your book is really, really helpful, to have a journal because a lot of men don't know where to go. So to have a journal that helps you go, all right, I'm grateful for this. This is what I'm going to work on. This is where, this is who I can have me hold me accountable, and then have it at the end of the day, to have both sides of that is so
Yeah.
critical. But in wrap up, what are some things that, just a thought or two, that you think are really, really critical for men to help them through that inner voice that is just, it's beating them down instead of building them up?
Yeah. I think, Jody, the foundation of what so many men, not just men, but people in general, but men deal with, man, is holding on to unforgiveness, right?
Mm,
Um, I think that needs to be the starting point, and that in and of itself is a process, right?
yes.
It's a process, man, because again, depending on how deep the trauma is, you may have to go all the way back to your childhood and deal with that thing, right? It doesn't necessarily mean you have to confront the person all the time, but you do have to make a decision within your heart that you will first and foremost forgive the person, forgive the offense, forgive yourself, and then make a decision to move beyond it. It doesn't mean that you won't ever think about it, but it doesn't know it no longer has to keep you in bondage. You're free now,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
I think that's the first step. I think that after that happens, now you're better able to have the ongoing conversation with someone that's going to hold you accountable to principle, not emotion.
Mm,
So key. So key because we can easily be faced with a trigger on an ongoing basis, and it's going to happen. There's going to be something that's going to trigger the event in your mind. But when you live your life disciplined by the principle, the emotion that was attached to the event no longer can keep you in bondage. Because
mm,
now the principle says, as you've already stated, Jody, am I going to react or am I going to respond? When you're reacting, you're making a decision based on emotion. When you're responding, it's based on principle. Principles are fixed laws that don't change. Whoever works the principle receives the reward. However,
mm.
the flip side of that is whoever instigate the consequence experience. Let me say it this way: whoever chooses not to live the principle activates the consequence. It's a decision. Principle, reward. Violated principle, consequence. We overcomplicate this thing because the trauma has caused our judgment to be cloudy. And so when we can forgive, when we decide to move forward, we hold ourselves accountable by bringing someone into the fold that can hold us accountable. Now we operate from principle, not emotion. And it gets easier, but it is a
Yeah.
process. And if you
Yes.
acknowledge in your mind first that I'm going into this process, not this overnight miracle, can it happen? Absolutely. But I think it's the inner work that needs to take place that positions you to receive everything that God has for you when you break through that.
Yeah.
So that would be my advice.
No, I love that. Be driven by principle instead of emotion, and really learning how to forgive, including yourself,
Absolutely, man. Mhm.
because that can really hold you back from becoming the man that you aspire to be, the man that you are meant to be, the man that your wife sees that you can be,
Absolutely.
and the men that, believe it or not, your children see. And they're seeing, they're hoping that you'll be even better, right? They're
Absolutely.
invested in you just as much as you are in them. And so it behooves us to become the kind of men that, we're meant to be and can become. So I want to thank you so much for taking the time, man. So where do people find your book, man? And what's the name of it again?
Yeah, man. They can just go to my website. It's on my website. Um, yeah, mental men's mental health legacy journal. And you know me, Jody. Everything is legacy for me. Everything is legacy. But they can go to my website, MikeLewisInc.com. MikeLewisinc.com. And everything is right there. You just go to the legacy store and you'll see it down there, man. With a host of different resources for you, but definitely get your hands on a copy of that journal. And I'm going to highly encourage anybody that makes a decision to get that journal to not just invest into yourself and get one. And the reason that I'm saying this, Jody, is because that accountability is so necessary, and as we've been talking, right? But get one for those that's going to hold you accountable, so when you guys come together, y'all can discuss what it is that
Oh,
you
that's a
think is
good
working.
idea. That's a real
So,
good idea.
so yeah, man. So just go to the website; it's there, and man, we're praying for men, and of course, I look forward to our Monday morning prayers, man. We're on tomorrow, by the way.
That's
So
right.
I'm
Yeah,
looking.
it's
I'm
great.
up tomorrow, right? Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
I'm
you
up
are.
tomorrow.
So that's
Yeah.
good.
So I'm
No,
looking forward to
and
it, man.
and and I'm glad that you pointed that out, because one of the real blessings in my life, straight up, is being able to meet with you, Sean and Vaughn, every
Absolutely.
Monday morning and have
Absolutely.
a prayer together to talk, to enlist God's blessing upon our week and upon each other and upon our families, and to have that power and the ability to do that across a country,
Yeah.
to tap into each other's love and brotherhood and sisterhood and strength. It really is a blessing, and I am eternally grateful for the relationship that I have with the three of
Likewise.
you got the three of you, and it's been a blessing to me. My wife sees it, my kids see it, and it's rippled across this podcast. To have
Yeah.
you and Antoine Brown and Sean, and I've had Sean the roofer and Sean Hart,
Yeah,
different
man.
Seans. But it's been just great, and it's all with the intent and purpose to ignite the fire within us to become better fathers, to become
That's it.
better husbands, to become better men, and leave the legacy, as you say, that will
Absolutely.
last through generations. So I want to thank you for taking the time. You guys that are listening, thank you for tapping in, and we will check you same time, same bat channel just next week. See ya.
Appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate you, brother.